I remember my first memory getting myself involved in any type of art was with my mother.
Devon's very first time painting. He likes to eat it and paint it on his face. No, not yet.
She would sit down with us and take time to really kind of teach us the fundamentals. She really just kind of sparked that inner interest. You know, it's an interesting question. Oftentimes people ask me, when did you get into art? When did this kind of all come together? I just moved to Los Angeles and I was sleeping on a friend of mine's couch. I was scrolling through Instagram and I went into my DM requests and I had a request from what I thought was some weird, creepy guy out in Indiana offering me, I think it was $100 to talk to me for 10 minutes. And I was like, I don't know about this, but struggling for money at the time, sleeping on my friend's couch, I was like, that's food for a week, for 2 weeks, whatever it may be. And I reluctantly got on the phone call with him. And when I answered the phone, he said, Devon, are you into spirituality? Are you religious? Shared with him during college and university that I had studied world religion and theology and really wanted to have a better understanding of the worldviews and perspectives out there. And he simply, in like the most quiet tone, just said, hey, I've been thinking about you and there's something telling me to tell you that you should start painting. And that night, I remember going to like my local art store, picking up a canvas and scribbling shapes all over this canvas. Yeah, I think it just kind of naturally progressed after that. It was, 6-7 months later that, I'd started drawing on anything and everything I get my hands on. I scraped together a little bit of money and had a family friend connection to a really small studio space. Once I got in there, it's just like my imagination spun out of control. As I was developing my craft and learning different styles of painting and sculpture, this kind of formation of shapes came about. It was this facial structure that looked part human, part animal, part deity. And all of a sudden it was this moment of clarity of like, hey, what about painting this kind of universal symbol of spiritual protection that's not specific to a theology, that's not specific to a spirituality, but something that regardless of your belief systems, regardless of who you are and where you are in your journey in life, that when you look at it, it'll give you a comfort and it'll give you this idea of like, this reminds me of this and this symbol is this. So during university, I studied world religion and theology, and my focus was trying to understand the major worldviews and perspectives that were out there. So much of the conversation was around the differences, and for some reason it didn't sit right with me. I felt that we needed to focus in on what was similar and what brought people into a form of unity. For me, it was this idea that we were all searching for this spiritual protection, that we were all trying to have an understanding and a guidance of what was next or what is beyond us during our time here. The hope is when people look at, this series of work, I've spent 6-7 years of my life now working on and fine-tuning, refining, developing, pushing forward. The goal is to just open up a conversation, open up a discussion that people can kind of share, their background, where they're at in their life, what their beliefs are, and ultimately challenge one another, dive into the differences, but then ultimately come to a conclusion on the similarities. I think we have enough separation in the world right now, and we have enough conflict and struggle and pain and suffering. If we can create conversations and safe places to find identifiers between humans, there's going to be much more progression, and I really hope that my art can do that. Looking back on a lot of my life in my earlier adolescence, I had a deep struggle with anxiety, panic disorder, and depression. It got really, really, really dim. During that time, I remember specifically always kind of crying out for help, calling for something greater than me, and nothing was showing up. That was one of the scariest moments of my life, but eventually I pushed through and I was able to see that there is something greater out there, but it took a lot of work and a lot of time. And for me, a lot of this work that I'm developing is a reflection of that time. It's a hope of mine that people can identify with it and also remember it when times get dim for them. I'm spending a lot of time recently diving into this NFT side of things, this whole new world that's opened up. I've sat on the back burner with it for a while because I really wanted to understand what was going on. I just didn't want to jump on the train and push things that didn't sit right with me. But over the last year and a half, I've spent time learning, but I've also spent time researching how I can further develop my in real life studio practice into something more. And I want to see how much further I can push what I'm doing in real life in this digital space. And the idea of wanting to develop worlds around my work, being more immersive with my shows and exhibitions that I put on, I think this is only going to spark greater ideas.